Hello, welcome back. It's Rapid Regeneration with me, David Escamilla. I'm not a doctor. I'm not making any medical claims or claims about diseases. I'm covering some information that, if you've been following so far, basically it's explained about how to cleanse out the body, get it detoxed, how to transition, and eat more healthy, electrical, alkalizing foods. And basically, I hope that you have gotten value out of the information so far. It's just getting cooking now. Because what's going to happen is, if you go through this info and you really follow this, and you really start to transform your body and you're noticing changes, then you're going to run up against some other crazy higher levels. You're going to get into a healing crisis. You're going to get into a balance, kind of challenge with regard to that. You're going to get into a lot of stuff. People dealing with other people. I mean, your life's going to change in a good way, but you're going to be met with new levels to contend with. So it's not just about understanding nutrition, understanding how to clean out the body, which is important. And I'll get into more detail about more of that stuff in other segments. But it's important to address some of these things that you're going to run into, because cleaning out the body is easy. I mean, the chemistry is very basic at alkalizing your body, and your body knows what to do. You can just sort of let it take over. But what's difficult is, the healing crises, or how to deal with it, knowing what to do, discerning what to do, and some of this balance stuff, and dealing with other people. And so I'm going to help you to navigate that, because I've certainly learned along the way. I started detoxing myself and really got the power of this information in 2015. After I got just so sickly and ill, starting in 2011, I felt like I had been brain damaged and that my personality was gone. And that was very painful for those 4 years before I discovered this information about how to really detoxify the poisons and the toxins that I had experienced from overdosing on cough medicine, and eventually completely recovered. And so, it wasn't easy, but it was simple, organic, natural, over the course of about 3.5 years to completely heal myself. And along the way, I had some healing crises. And I mean, in the last 7 years, I've probably had 7 or 8 major healing crises, and maybe, a few other smaller ones. And so I know as you're going along with this, by the way, my mission is to help you to, if you're suffering, to get yourself out of that. If you're in relatively good shape, you want to go to the next level, I've done that as well, in terms of next level energy, next level awareness. But my goal is to help you. So the way that I know I can add value to you is giving some insight into this and some of these nuanced kind of subjects. So look, nothing comes easy. I mean, basically nothing of any great accomplishment. If your goal is to reverse your current health conditions, your problems, and basically transform yourself, that's an ambitious goal. And so mark my words that that's not going to come easily. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. And so this is just the nature of free will, of the life that we're in. And so, there's going to be a couple challenges. You'll be tested, and to get from where you are now to where you want to be, it's going to take a little bit of of adversity at some points. And that's the nature of the healing crisis. So here's the basic concept of the healing crisis. So as toxins get released from being lodged inside your body, from whether they're in your lymphatic system, intestines, organs, your fat deposits, your connective tissue, okay, as these get released, they can get dislodged and they're sent to one of your eliminative systems to be eliminated. So that would be your lymphatic system, your colon, your lungs, or your skin. During that process, some of these toxins can be reabsorbed, for example, back into the bloodstream. And so the original trauma of this toxicity can be re-experienced to some degree as the body purges itself of that substance. So, I mean, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that can happen. You know, you can have old injury areas that sort of swell back up. You can experience sort of some symptoms that you've had fleetingly, you know, previously, you know, as the body is clearing up these blockages. And so there's also emotional experiences, you know, if you really want to get into it. So, I mean, you know, your physical unit is deeply tied to an emotional experience. It's impossible to separate the emotions and have a purely physical experience. Everything is emotional. And so basically sometimes we have emotional associations in the past where basically we caused harm to the body either emotionally or physically, and the emotions that happen when the physical trauma happens or when the emotional trauma happens, you know, they get imprinted very deeply in the brain. Whenever there's a trauma that's happening, you know, it stores information on a very, very deep level when you're in that sort of fight or flight kind of a mode. And so as you go through this, and if you dislodge or if you get rid of some kind of physical trauma that happened, maybe too there's an emotional imprint that is also being kind of purged, or there's an emotional trauma that happened and that too can be purged out. When these emotional states get dislodged, to try to kind of clear them out, you can experience some of this negative baggage that's in there as you're sort of throwing it overboard and creating more of a fresh, clean slate. So yeah, it's normally short-lived, you know, it's normally maybe a couple hours or maybe a day or maybe a couple of days. Now, everybody's different, okay? I can't predict exactly what's going to happen with you. You know, everybody's different, and healing crises they're kind of mystical. You know, it's partly science. You know, there is an anatomy to it. For example, if your lymph nodes sort of purge themselves and dump out toxins that are in there to be eliminated, it can cause kind of an achy feeling all throughout the body. And this is very anatomical, it's very scientific, you know, because it's toxicity, it's acidity, and that feels achy and unpleasant. But there's also an art to a healing crisis, and the art of navigating it, and the art of what your body's doing. Some of it's mystical, and it goes beyond, you know, explanation. And so my attitude towards these, because I learned about this very early on, has been very a one of gratitude, one of welcoming, and kind of like, hey, you know, bring it on, because once you understand that your body's trying to help itself and trying to heal itself, then basically you can embrace a healing crisis with open arms, and just make sure you know how to handle it, which is basically the point of this segment, is sort of what to do to handle it. But before you know what to do to handle it, you need to understand what it is, and you need to have an awareness, so that you can connect with your body and what your body's doing, because that level of awareness is going to open up the power of what your body's doing. So now the first healing crisis I had was after doing the liver cleanse, and I felt so good, and I was eating so much junk and drinking so much junk over several weeks, and then I basically got really sick. I got like a really bad cold. I had runny nose, coughing, aching, fever. I was so tired and lethargic, and basically I went through this healing crisis, and I discovered some information basically that was saying, if you're having a healing crisis, then just eat as much fruit as you can, which is what I did. And I didn't take any drugs or medicine. And basically a few days later, I was amazed at how good I felt. I felt so much better than I even did before the cold came on. So previously my experience was always like, I would always feel kind of worse after a cold. Even after it was over, I would feel slightly worse. So this was my first experience with that. Now, it's important as a side note to point out that this is one of the more common healing crises, is you sort of get these cold-like symptoms. So you got to understand that, okay, yes, the body is in a permanent state of detoxification every moment. It's always detoxifying. But the body's very intelligent. And what a healing crisis is sort of the body ramping it up a gear, and it's throwing itself into a more dramatic state of detoxification. So you have these cold-like symptoms where your body is expelling mucus out of the mouth and nose. It's heating the body with a fever to kill harmful organisms and to sweat out toxins. It's coughing out toxins and mucus through the lungs. It is losing appetite so that you don't eat, because digestion, is going to divert energy from cleaning and healing. So, and it's forcing rest. It's making you tired, and it's forcing rest. It's forcing a break from stress, among other methods. So these are like, and also it's purging, again, that achy feeling. It can be purging toxins from the lymph nodes, in terms of into the lymphatic system to be eliminated. So these are your basic kind of cold-like symptoms. And most people don't associate this with a healing crisis or with the idea that the body is trying to help itself. And, please understand that this can happen as a result of the body just simply being overly toxic, and the body's like, all right, I'm flipping the switch. I think that's what happened with me on that first major healing crisis, because I'm telling you, I was abusing my body with food and drinks, and I feel like it was just totally overwhelmed, acidic, full of mucus, full of toxins. And so it went into this cold-like symptoms kind of process. But I'm not saying that you can't get invaded by some harmful organism. You could have a harmful organism or some kind of parasitic organism that does infiltrate the body, attacks the body, and you have an immune response, and that throws you into, again, the same cold-like symptoms. But either way, it's a healing crisis. And so just understand, it's a healing crisis, but the healing crisis is your body literally fixing itself and detoxifying itself and repairing itself. And so this is just very important to have this awareness, whether or not it's from some infection or some invasion of a foreign threat, or which most people think that's what it is 100% of the time, like, oh, I must have caught something. But it can also happen simply as the body cleaning itself if you've become overly toxic, which I actually think that this happens probably. I have no way to quantify this or back this up with science, but my feeling about it is that, you know, this type of cold-like healing crisis could happen more than half of the time that people are having cold-like symptoms, is just because they're overly toxic and their body is like, all right, well, if you're not gonna clean me out, you know, and do it consciously, I'm gonna do it subconsciously. I'm just gonna fix you in a more dramatic kind of a crisis. And so you should be thanking your body. We grow up, we're taught by our parents that, and schools and everything else, that the body's attempts to detoxify itself when this happens is a bad thing. And we refer to it as, oh, you're getting sick. Oh man, you're sick. I'm sorry. Well, in fact, a lot of times the individual had already been making themselves sick over the previous weeks and months to that episode, until the body is throwing itself into this healing process to get rid of that sickness. So, you know, and the other thing is, you know, we're given these suppressive medications growing up. I certainly was as a child, which just reverse what the body is trying to do. For example, you have cough suppressant, that this is going to prevent the lungs from expectorating mucus and toxins. I mean, in these different medicines and these pharmaceutical drugs over the counter and prescription that just literally just suppress what the body's doing and stop the body's own process of detoxification. So if you don't take these, if you try it, you know, basically going through one of these processes and you don't take the suppressive drugs, and you give your body, you know, cleansing type foods, and and basically you should feel much better after this healing crisis, not worse. So basically, but you can see that if a body's trying to fix somebody and over again they just suppress, you know, it's no wonder why people just degenerate and then just die. You know, so this is a big one. I mean, this is a big concept to wrap your mind around. Now, some people would say that, you know, my point of view about this, which, you know, I didn't come up with it, but it makes sense to me, that the body is just trying to help us with these healing crises. Some people would say, you know, that's controversial, and, you know, there's no way to prove that, and that it's a bad thing, not a good thing, when the body is going through these crises. You know, and look, I understand. I mean, that's what we've been taught our whole lives. I'm not saying it's easy to just completely shift that paradigm of way of thinking, but as soon as I learned about this, it made sense to me. I mean, it just makes common sense. I mean, these are just natural facts about what the body's doing and common sense. So if this makes sense to you, if you can embrace the logic of the healing crisis, then it is going to open up doors. If you're closed-minded about it, you don't think it's going to work, it's actually going to be a block. If you embrace it, if you raise your level of awareness about this, then you're actually putting yourself into harmony with your body. You're acknowledging it, you're thanking it for how it's actually serving you. And you can be amazed at the benefits you could get from some of these crises. So some other tips and tricks, I guess, is, you know, you want to just be aware of something coming on, roll with it. don't fight it. And, if possible, try to have one in the rest and relaxation of a comfortable setting, as opposed to being like, in a high stress job and just killing yourself, with work and kind of distractions. So, those are kind of some tips and tricks. Roll with it. Don't fight it. And so, just to wrap up, it's my view that everybody has healing crises. So basically everybody, and even whether or not you're gonna work on yourself, detoxifying yourself or not. But basically, if you do pursue the art and science of detoxification, then what you're doing is basically you're accelerating these healing crises. You're kind of getting them out of the way, or you're moving them up on the timetable, so you can make them happen on your schedule rather than waiting for a crisis to explode, at a very inconvenient time years later. If there's some kind of over-toxicity in your body, and you're going to open up the doorways of detoxification and open up the doorways of your eliminative systems and get everything turned on and cleaning itself out, then it's going to speed up some of these healing crises, because the body's like, okay, the exit doors are open. Let's unload this junk. The body is intelligent. Please do not underestimate the intelligence of your own systems of your body. So again, I had maybe 7 or 8 different ones, when I was over the last 7 years or so. I had this one, the craziest one I had was probably where my eye swelled up, my left eye. It swelled up like crazy. Now, it's a long story, but I used to be pretty wild and rambunctious. And back in the day, I got in this fight, and I was punched in the eye. I got a big black eye. I was also maced. This individual was really fighting dirty, and I got pepper sprayed in the eyes. So I had this old injury, and I don't know if that's what it was, or if it was it was crazy, but my whole eye swelled up for like a couple days, and it freaked my mom out. It really did, but everything was fine, and I could feel a lot of toxins and so forth being cleansed out of that area. It just makes sense that if toxins are being released that were being stored and encapsulated previously, now they're being released and working themselves out of the body, that the body would swell up and have edema and water retention, to buffer, those gnarly acids, in that area. That's just one example. That was probably the craziest one that I experienced. So yes, so this is the power of compressing time. Okay, you've spent years and decades, creating a toxic buildup in your body, which can be contributing to, a state of poor health if you're having health problems or anything. And now your body is demonstrating to you an ability to sort of transform on a dime, and within a period of a few days or weeks or whatever, usually days, take a dramatic quantum leap and really metamorphosize, transform into better health, and basically erase a lifetime of damage in a very short period of time. This is the amazing power of a healing crisis. But, do you really think that's going to happen, with no friction, without it ever getting bumpy, or rocky? And it's just going to happen like, oh, poof, just sparkles and and it just all transforms, so easily. Nothing in life comes easily. That's great, and that's worth having. That's something amazing. It always takes some adversity to get there, and you might have to slog through some stuff. So before this happens to you, I want to prepare you for that. And you should be mentally prepared, spiritually prepared. You should be thankful. And if there's some kind of karma involved, you should be like, thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to go through this unpleasant experience so that I can get to the other side and I can get rid of this. I can become unattached from this baggage that I was carrying around. And I think if you can get through your first one, you'll get it. And it'll click with this mindset, and you'll be like now my body is cleaned out to the point where I don't experience these crises very often or hardly at all. So I'm like, man, please, I'm begging for one. Bring it on. Because, and you might feel this way too, where you're like, man, this was a huge gift. There's an expression that when God wants to give you a gift, He wraps it up in the form of a problem. So if God wants to give you the gift of really detoxifying yourself, regenerating yourself, and transforming your body, then it may be wrapped up in a problem of a healing crisis. If you can embrace that problem, it really shouldn't last long. Knock it out, brace yourself, power through it, couple of days maybe, and get to the other side of it. And if you have this attitude of gratitude about it, and you unwrap that present, I'm telling you, it's so rewarding. And after you do your first one, you're going to be like, bring it on, because that's how I was. So I hope this helps to give you some insight on that, to prepare you for that. Get ready, get through your first one, have an open mind, and this should make total sense to you, and then you'll know what to do, how to navigate, how to listen to your body. If you're feeling like you're being put in the passenger seat and your body's like, hang on there, buddy, here we go, because this is the part of the fun. And I'm not saying it's always going to be peaches and roses and sparkles and unicorns. It could get gnarly, so be prepared. But do you want to die a long, slow death of having health problems your whole life and suffering and pain? Because that's the other alternative. Or do you want to just purge these problems and experience some discomfort, over a short period of time on their way out? Because that's what the healing crisis is. It's your ticket out of a life sentence of suffering, for long periods of time. So go with it, stay strong, and you're going to do great. If you have any questions, anything I can do to help you, let me know. If you need some coaching or something, that is offered. Go to rapidregeneration.com. And again, I'm honored to be helping you. Keep paying attention to the segments ahead. Super critical stuff. And that's all for now for the healing crisis. Good luck, and bye for now.
For more information, please follow at Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.